All right, we're live. We're gonna see if this works. Lester's got
Having some connection issues
yeah.
here. It's been a bit windy and icy in Kenosha. We had a bad ice storm yesterday, and then I know there's still a lot of the areas out of power, so maybe they're just some extra stress on the Spectrum internet tonight.
Well, we were gonna go last night, and we were talking about it back and forth. And I had a really long day of work yesterday, and I was kind of like, I hope he says cancel. Didn't really want to go last night. And then you're like, is this ice storm? You never know. But yeah, okay, let's not chance it during an ice storm.
Yeah,
Uh, but it does seem like there's some remnants here. You were freezing up a lot, so your audio. I haven't heard a lot of robot voice when we were doing a little pregame. So hopefully we're okay with at least the audio portion. But stick with us. We'll do our best through this.
short and
Um,
sweet show tonight.
Short and sweet.
It's all about the trenches.
I mean, a little bit like I got a new sweatshirt.
Ah,
This is the
sweetness.
Roots of Fight uh, group. So little sweetness and 34 printed there, and I like it. It's got the pouch, and then there's like a secret little container pouch within the pouch. I don't know what you put in it, like chapstick or something,
Is
but
that a
it's
nod to Walter Payton's old shoe line, his old shoe deal?
the
Do you remember
Roots.
what they did? Or kangaroos? He had a little pocket in the shoe. Maybe that's a nod to
Oh,
that.
really?
Yeah, you
Oh,
didn't know that? That
I don't know. I don't own another sweatshirt from they do a lot of different icons. I don't know. This is not a very good visual, but anyway, it's a little secret little pouch inside of there. Yeah, maybe that's a nice little Easter egg if that's what it is. I didn't know. I stuck my hands in and I was like, "What is this?" And I was like, "Oh, that's really cool." And I don't know what you put in there. It's not big enough for a phone or anything, but I don't know. You could probably like put chapstick in it or something.
something.
I don't know what
Yeah.
you carry in a pouch within a pouch. Um, I bought a sweatshirt. I like hoodies. I mean, whatever. They're comfy. And I bought one and like I was like, oh, it had a bear on it. It's not a bear's, branded thing. It just had a bear on it, right? It was, outline of a bear. It's like, oh, I really like this. It's a cool color. I put the hood up. Yeah. I go to put my hands in the pocket. There's no pocket. I bought it online. I just assumed that
Yeah.
there was a pouch.
You're
And
supposed to have a
I
pocket.
like the feel. I like everything about it except there's no pouch. So I'm gonna have my wife make me a pouch and put it on it. I haven't worn it since. I like showed her. She's like, it's kind of hard. It's not gonna look very good. And I go, I don't care. I want a pouch. I don't want to wear this thing if it doesn't have a pouch.
Yeah, it's pointless. Crazy. You
Hoodies
ready
with
to get
pouches.
rocking here?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, yeah.
I'm afraid
Let's do
I'm
it.
afraid something's gonna happen here where I'll just all of a sudden be glitched out and then you'll be rolling solo all day on the
No,
podcast. So
that
that's
no one
that's
and no one wants that. No
yeah,
one wants that.
that's
We're not gonna
rough.
do that. All right. Timestamp, and we will rock and roll. Welcome to Bear of Balance. I'm Jeff Burkus, a writer for Windy City Gridiron, and I'm joined by the editor of that fine website, Lester A. Wiltfong Jr. Lester, we are fully into the off-season mode. The Super Bowl is behind us. Free agency period is just around the corner. The free agency tags are out, right? We're starting to hear rumors about some of our favorite targets getting tagged. Have you been tagged yet? Has Windy City Gridiron tagged you for exclusive rights?
Yeah, I think I was tagged a few years ago. So I'm exclusive to WCG and of course the Second City Gridiron who are watching on a YouTube channel. So I'm okay with it though. It's a good it's they've been good to me and I gave them a team friendly deal. So hopefully at the point I'll be compensated.
Yeah. All right. We are already experiencing just a little bit
Oh,
of robot
mother
voice from Lester,
effer.
but we're going to do our best to work through that, and we will work through the audio. But we're going to talk about the trenches tonight. That's what we're going to talk about. We won't delay that too much longer, and we're going to do our best. I want to start at right tackle, Lester, because there are some interesting names at right tackle. I would say that this is an area of need that has some of the best available options on the market. Okay. Now, let me get one name spoken and we can discard it. That is Orlando Brown Jr.
Yeah.
No interest. Now, he's a gambler, they just won the Super Bowl, and like he's going to get paid by somebody. Good for him. Maybe Kansas City brings him back under a tag. Maybe he gets a big contract somewhere. Good for him. I don't think he's in the plans for Ryan Poles and the Chicago Bears team. I don't think he fits the athletic profile. And if you watch him enough, he's just kind of a fascinating watch. And that he's a to me he's a gambler, and I don't think that that's something that you invest in and give that kind of guy a lot of money. He certainly has a lot of skill and a lot of technique, but I don't think it's what the Bears are looking for in terms of a physical build and what they want to plug in along their line. So I just want to identify that as a high price target that I don't think the Bears are in on. Do you agree?
He's a very good player. He's left tackle pretty much exclusive, and that's why he went to KC. He wanted to be a left tackle. He wants to get left tackle money. The Chiefs talk about they're going to franchise tag him. That's the rumor out there. I never saw the fit in Chicago because they really seem to like Braxton Jones. Now, look, Orlando Brown is a better left tackle than Braxton Jones. That's it. I mean, there is no getting around that. But the Bears feel they have a young building block in place at left tackle. They can build around him on that part of the line. They're comfortable leaving him there. So I think they're going to spend a ton of money on the right side and let Braxton Jones sink or swim there. You know, a year of offseason work on his core strength, work on his technique a little bit. I'm excited to see Braxton Jones play football next year. He may never get to the Pro Bowl level. And you know what? That's fine. You're not going to get a Pro Bowler all over the place, but you know they're going to have to spend some money on this whole line. And you know, if you don't have to spend elite cash right now left tackle, I think that's fine.
Yeah, I agree. And so let's get into the names that I think are pretty interesting. I think that there's a good chance that at least one, if not two, or maybe all three of these guys end up hitting free agency. And I think they're all interesting names. So Jawan Taylor would be the first guy that's on a lot of people's lists. He had a very nice year for the Jaguars this year, probably their best offensive lineman, and which is really nice progression from him because he has struggled in the early part of his career, kind of a similar situation maybe to the Garrett Bowles out in Denver, where he came in, really struggled at left tackle, and then really
Yeah.
kind of hit his stride and got paid. You know, hit his stride at the right time. Jawan Taylor had a very nice year, and he's starting to get some buzz as maybe that's somebody that the Jags already invested a draft pick in another offensive lineman. They may just want to roll with that player and let Taylor hit free agency. They spent a lot of money last year, so maybe they're willing to let him go. He'd be an interesting name. I think the name that is very interesting to a lot of Bears fan is Mike McGlinchey because he is a Golden Domer. And those guys always get a little bit more interest from Bears fans. You know, I think there's like 17 Notre
Yeah.
Dame alums at this point on this roster. I don't know. It's an insane number. But he comes from a very similar system, pretty durable. You know, missed some games last year, a couple nagging injuries, but overall, like a very consistent guy. Probably a better run blocker than a pass blocker, but still like pretty consistent. And then Caleb and Gary from the Falcons, who is a guy that had his best year as a professional. Maybe you're buying at the top of his ability, or maybe he's hitting a new level in his career, right? That there's always a little bit of danger to pay a guy who hasn't had consistently good seasons and has had, come out with a one really good season when he's in line for a contract. That would apply to both Taylor and McGarry. But that's kind of the situation there. So you got three guys all coming off of good years. McGlinchey with maybe a little bit more of a performance history and certainly more of a proven scheme fit for this Bears offense. But how do you see those three, and how would you maybe rank your preference of what Ryan Poles should go after?
I think McGlinchey's the guy. I mean, that just seems like the guy that makes the most sense here. Scheme fit, and the one thing that fans have to realize is they're going to pay a ton of money at right tackle. You know, whether the guy, someone else, they're going to overpay. I mean, who was it who just got paid for the Browns? Conklin. I think it was a few months back. He got an extension. It was like 14, 15 million a year. So the way the NFL, the money goes, the next crop up, they're going to get more than that. McGlinchey may not be as good a player, but considering how he's coming as a free agent right now, he's going to get more money. So you're going to look at the price tag and say, "There's this guy's worth that." That's just the cost of doing business in the NFL. You know, you're going to pay a little more. Plus, where the Bears are right now as a franchise, they got a ton of cap space, and that's a definite need position. So if you're going to get McGlinchey to leave San Fran and come to a 3-win football team, you got to pay a premium, you know, to get these guys to come here, because we like to say, hey, they're going to want to come play for Justin Fields and Coach Flus. It's a great culture. You know, it's at some point that may be true, but right now they want to get paid. And coming to a 3-win team, you're going to pay Mike McGlinchey a ton of money. Taylor, I think, would be a nice fit. And then McGarry, there's been some rumors in Atlanta they're going to franchise tag him. Again, the franchise tag deadline opened up yesterday on the 21st, I believe it was, of February. There's time, but I think it's going to be McGlinchey is the guy that's going to be their top target. And then, you know, you talk about the Chiefs, the right tackle is a free agent as well too this coming up season. His name escapes me right now. I was trying to look it up, but my internet is not cooperating on all fronts here.
No, we're having a time. I mean, I think it's your internet. It might be mine.
It's
right?
probably me. It's probably me.
But yeah, we're having a time.
It's a bit windy outside, and like I said, we had some power outages in the year, and it's spotty. So my guess is the whole system is just stressed.
Yeah, I've thought that McGlinchey was the obvious target. I kind of want to just like I want to know, did these guys that went to college together, are they friends? Like, does that mean? I know it doesn't mean much, but like, do you know? Is McGlinchey know Cole Kmet? Right? Like, did they talk? Is
They
this
crossed
something
a
that
little, yeah.
right? Like, if they would have played together, like, does that mean anything to these guys to kind of come back? I mean, if you're friends, I would think that you'd want to do that. But I've always seen it like the first contract for a player is prove that you belong, establish where you are in the pecking order. The second contract is to get paid. The third contract, if you're lucky enough to get one, like, you know, you get a big contract. The third contract, if you hit again, it's go chase a ring, right? And,
Yeah.
and sometimes these guys win championship, obviously, throughout, or they're successful or they're not, or they sign a 1-year deal because they're coming off an injury. I mean, every career is a little different, but it's sort of the wave of what these guys go through when they're making these decisions. One, it's like set yourself up financially, and then it's like, hey, I'm still around. I want to keep playing, but I don't care about the money as much. I want to go to a winner. And right now, what the Bears have is money.
Yeah.
What they don't have is, you know, a guaranteed playoff run that some of these guys are chasing. So if you were going to say, hey, Jason Kelsey, you look pretty good still. You might still be the best center in the league. Do you want to come play for the Chicago Bears? We have a need at center. He'd be like, you know, I'm good. I don't need the money here. If I'm going to play, it's going to be because I want another shot at a ring, right? That's where he's probably at in his career. So I think that it fits for these guys. They're all about that age where they could want that big money, and the Bears have the big money. I wouldn't worry about it. These guys are all worth a big contract. To be McGlinchey's worth more than McGarry, just because he's proven it a little longer. Taylor, I think, he's got pedigree and he had a good year. I think he's probably, to me, like Garrett Bowles is the comparison that I think of as a guy that finally figured it out. Maybe you get an opportunity to get him because the Jags are they're ready to move on because they already made their investment, right? They already made their investment in another player. So for me right now, I think the most likely is McGlinchey, but I'd be very happy with Taylor. And I think McGarry is kind of a consolation prize if he does shake loose from the Falcons. But any of those three would be a guy that you would count on to be your starting right tackle for the next 4 years.
At least 4 years. Then with McGarry, you know, there is a small connection. He was coached by the Bears O-line coach currently, so he'll have a little inside knowledge there. Of course, you mentioned the scheme fit with the other guys and the scheme fit with McGarry as well. And then with McGlinchey, I know a lot of Bears fans during the postseason. There were a couple high-profile mistakes he made. Offensive linemen get beat. You know, it doesn't matter who you are. If you're elite, you're going to get beat once in a while. And he got beat pretty good a couple plays. And of course, the way the networks do is, let's have the replay. Let's show this. Get his ass whipped all this time. But the rest of the game was pretty good. There was a few plays later, I think, on the goal line where they showed him just pile driving this guy, and just he's a good football player, and that's what he is. He's not a Pro Bowler. He's not at level. Could he get there? Yeah, he's still fairly young as far as an NFL O lineman goes. So, a lot of fans, that one play, that right away, that's what they look at. Come on, this
You know
is
what?
O line. It's gonna happen.
It just kills me too because they had to run 70 plays and he could have won 68 of those reps, but he doesn't
Yes.
win 2 of them, right? And the one he gets, I have no idea what the actual, breakdown was. But you get that one rep where you get embarrassed. And I can't often, I know what the freeze frame looks
You
like,
know the play. Yeah.
right? The freeze frame is one of those where it says, you're probably wondering how I got here, right? Like that.
Yeah.
That's one of those situations. I think he might have crossed over his feet when he got beat by a move upfield. I mean that again. I'd have to go back and look at it, but
It
it hap-
happens.
it happens.
It happens to
I'm not gonna
everybody.
worry about a couple plays against elite edge rushers, right? I mean it is what it is.
He would be the best right tackle the Bears have had in quite some time if they do him. Any guys, anyone in the market, there's probably about 10 guys that Bears are going to go after and sign. I'm sure they have their pecking order, but they need a right tackle because Riley Reef's not it. Larry Borum's not
Right.
it. That guy's not on this roster. Maybe he comes in the draft. I highly doubt that because you got to address these needs pre-draft.
And you have to spend some of this money, and
Yes.
this is prime candidates to do it. So let's move inside, but I think we're agree that one of these guys I think is going to be wearing navy and orange,
Yeah.
assuming that they get to market. So let's move on to I want to talk about the interior offensive line. A couple names that are kind of interesting, and I just wanted to talk about them. There's the center Ethan Posick or Posick.
Yeah.
He's from the Browns. I don't know a ton about him, but he's kind of the top center prospect that's not named Jason Kelsey. But again, let's take Jason Kelsey off
Kelsey's
the
not. Yeah,
board.
he's
He's
not
not going to
going.
come to Chicago. It's just not going to happen. As much as I love watching Jason Kelsey play, he's not going to just be like, yeah, I would like to work with this building roster and see where this goes. It's not going to happen, right? So let's not worry about that. Isaac Sayamalu, who I mentioned on Bill's show as a guy that I'm really interested in because he's on that Eagles offensive line. So you remember Ian Cunningham, assistant GM, comes from the Eagles. He would know Sayamalu well. I think he's a good football player. I think he had a high profile penalty in the Super Bowl. So
He's a
I was like,
bum. That
ah,
makes him a bum, though. Yeah.
crap. Somebody's going to use that against me. But
Yeah.
I think he's a good player. I found myself watching him in the playoffs because I knew that he was potentially going to be hitting the market. And I think he's a good football player. He's
He
playing
is.
some of his best ball, coming off an injury this year, recovering from an injury. And then you mentioned Dalton Reisner from Denver might shake loose there. That's an interesting player, guy who's played pretty solid football for them. So what's your thoughts on interior? Are you thinking that they're going to try to bring in a guard to maybe replace Cody Whitehair? Do you think that they want to go after a center and have Patrick kind of slip back into that role? Any interest in the free agency market for this interior offensive line?
You think they got to address it. I mean, do you trust Lucas Patrick as the guy that's going to come in and play center for you? I know the Bears like him. They talked him up quite a bit last offseason. They talked him up quite a bit when the season ended, but he's not making the kind of money where you say, "Oh yeah, he's the clear cut guy." I think he's making like 4.5 ish million. That's not money, but it's not the money where you say, "Yeah, he's got to be a guy." I think there's an out in his contract if they don't think he's going to be around. They can cut him and save a little money on the cap. I think he sticks, but is he your center? That's the problem here. So if you're committed him as your center, I don't think you go for poachers. I think you go for one of the guards here. And you mentioned the guy from Denver. I watched a little bit of his film this last week. He's decent. I mean, he's again, he'd be an upgrade there from Cody Whitehair. Which again, that's another question mark. Cody Whitehair's making a ton of money. At some point, they cut him. They just cut Al Qadim Muhammad, saved like $4 million. So they're already having the cap on their mind. But do you want to cut Cody Whitehair now and then take a chance and not get one of these guys to replace him? Because it's not like he's not a bum. I know a lot of Bears fans thinks he's a bum. He's still a passable, serviceable interior offensive lineman. And with the Bears cap situation, 100 million right now. Maybe he sticks around. Maybe he survives free agency. Maybe he survives the draft. Maybe he survives the entire training camp. and they want to see what happens there, because if he's going to be one of your top reserves, that kind of money, that's not ideal. But again, you don't want to create a hole unless you have to.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. You don't want to cut him because then that puts additional stress on what you have to do this
You have
offseason
to
in
get a
terms of
guard. Yeah.
you would have to go out there, right? And if some of these guys don't shake loose or they're not interested in coming to Chicago, then you've just added additional work for yourself. Honestly, Ryan Pace used to do that a little bit. He was used to you just get out in front of himself and oh, I'm doing this guy a solid by letting him work the market. And it's like not when you're creating a hole
Yeah.
if that guy could play, right? Like, that's it's not the worst thing if he comes back, particularly from a leadership standpoint. They definitely like Cody Whitehair for that reason. But yeah, you don't want to create a hole where you don't have one now because you got enough to begin with. So let's, kind of pump the brakes on that. But it wouldn't surprise me if they prioritize bringing in a guard and then basically saying, okay, we can spend this money because we know we can open it back up. And thanks for your service, Cody. Hope for the best here for you in your future career. But in terms of Whitehair and his, I think there's a very clear indication that he's had some injuries because he's played good football and then all of a sudden he drops off. And generally
Yeah.
that's an injury. It was very obvious this year because he missed time with an injury. When he came back, he wasn't playing as well as he was before that. The year before, he was just kind of bad. And I think that a lot of that was an injury that was not disclosed. And that happens all the time. Even if the NFL says that doesn't, that it certainly happens all the time. And I think that we're maybe at the point where Cody Whitehair's body is just kind of betraying him. And at some point, you give a guy a pass once, but twice you let another team take that chance. So
Yep.
that's where I'm at with it. I do think they should go after a replacement. I like the guy. I hate saying that, but that's sort of that's where you're at. You need to kind of get younger anyway. You're building for the future. I do think that it would be wise for them to maybe go after a guy that has shown a little bit more stability and buy a few more years back on that offensive line, get little bit more youth.
So where are you on Lucas Patrick? Do you see him as do you see him as definitely the Bears looking at him as a starter? Do you think he's going to be your swing guy? Because we saw nothing from Patrick this last season. He just wasn't. He wasn't good at guard. He wasn't good at what do you have, snaps at center, and then he got hurt again. So
Yeah, like 7, 10, 11. It was very low, and then he got hurt. For me, I will be pretty disappointed if they don't come out of the draft with a center.
yes,
Now, I think they can go into the draft with Lucas Patrick as their center, and I won't freak out. But if they come out of the draft with Lucas Patrick as their center, I think that's a little bit of a failure. I think that they need to upgrade at that position. And I think it's smart to get a talent at that position that can grow with Justin Fields. I think that'll just be good for both of their development. But you just see how important a very smart and active center is. And a lot of these guys can come in and play right away. That you're seeing some of the more talented centers come in and make an impact early, right? Creed Humphrey for the Chiefs came. I mean, this is one of the guys that EJ and I talked about ad nauseum,
yeah,
and he came in, he played right away, he played really well. That was kind of sad. And then you saw you saw the Ravens take the Hawkeye last year. He played well. He's a Hawkeye. He's going to play
yeah.
well, right? But you got a few examples of rookie centers coming in and playing well. I wouldn't be shocked if John Michael Schmitz from Minnesota is the next guy in line there. There's a couple other prospects we'll get to on building the board, but there's a couple guys that we got our eye on. I'll be disappointed if the Bears don't nab one of those.
That's kind of where I'm at with you are as far as the interior of the O line. I think, especially with this draft lining, I know we're not talking draft, but I've looked over a little bit, and there's some guys on that day two range or early day three where you're like, yeah, this guy could probably come in and start within a year or two. So I think maybe if, like you said, if Lucas Patrick's the center going into the draft, you draft a center, let them battle it out, whether the rookie gig or not out of the gate, he's in your pipeline. You're going to definitely have the guy starting, year two if he develops correctly. So the same goes for guards. So you can find a guard in the draft. Tackle, I think, is where they're going to spend big money. They're going to get a top flight tackle. The way it lines up is they're going to have a young enough guy there. Interior, I think they may go a little older if possible, but depending on who shakes loose. But I know they want to go young as possible. But if you got to get a guy that's maybe 30s but still quality, get by with a year or two, move on, and now let's bring in the rookie or the guy that we just drafted in this year with when we trade back and pick up all those picks.
I want to tell a quick story because we're in the off season, so we don't need to
Yeah.
be the most efficient. But my high school made the state championship game a few years ago. Okay, it was the best finish that they've ever had. They lost the state championship game, but they got to the championship game. So a lot of my former teammates and I, like, we went back to watch them. And this team that they played, it's a parochial school, and they recruit. It just is what it is. That but they do they recruit. And when they ran their offense out on the field, they had 4 Division One offensive linemen and then a 5th guy. And when you and I were at camp, Doug Kramer was the 5th guy. The
Ah,
rookie center from last year from Illinois, um, just did not quite look like the others, right? Like, one of these does not look like the other. Now, I'm not trying to pick on him. Um, he got hurt right away. Again, the Sam Mustipher voodoo doll worked and all that. But unless he's able to have a really strong offseason where he's able to bulk up his body and get his body into a position where he looks more like a professional lineman, I don't think we can count on Doug Kramer. So that just putting that out there for those of you that are like, what about the guy we drafted last year from Illinois? I don't know. I'm not going to count him out, but he would have to have a lot of really good professional nutrition work and put something on his frame.
6th round draft pick. Those guys don't always pan out. I
Right.
mean, you would like it to happen. The Bears have a guard in Tyree Carter, also there from a small school. Maybe he pans out. I mean, he stuck around the Bears the whole year. He was on the active roster all year because they didn't want to take a chance to lose him on the practice squad. So maybe there's something there. Kellen Deach is the guy they got on the practice squad who
Yeah.
a fantastic tackle in college. Short arm guy got moved inside. Dolphins had him on the practice squad. They had to cut him. Bears ended up getting him, early in the season. It might have been a waiver thing. I forget exactly how that went early in the season, but maybe he's a guy that can kind of develop. But regardless, you need more talent on that O line. You need starters. You need depth. You need the whole thing. Yeah, you're going to have at least 10 on the roster, so you got to really build that up.
Good pull from you. I think that they signed Deach to the practice squad after cut down. So I think he
Yeah, and he
came
was there
over
the whole
for.
year. No one wanted him. I was a little surprised. The Bears did lose Zachary Thomas, who we saw in camp. Cody Whiter kind of mentored quite a bit. He was on the practice squad. Rams signed him away, and the Rams kept him on their active roster the whole season. So
But
maybe he's the keeper.
to your point, the Bears preferred to try to protect Jatire
Yeah,
Carter.
Carter. Yeah,
So, like, that should tell you where they preferred between those 2 prospects that they brought in. So, just yeah, you never know. The year 1 to 2 jump for these guys that come in, particularly from small schools, can be big. And that's also really good to remember for Braxton Jones. You guys, like,
yeah.
he took every snap at left tackle in the NFL coming from a small school. Like, he could absolutely take a nice step here. So don't rule that out. So, okay, real quick, Lester and I are going to take a break. And after the break, we are going to switch to the other side of the ball and talk defensive line. All right, Lester, let's talk D line. I want to go inside first here because I want to talk D tackle. Let's start with the rumors about Deron Payne, who, for all intents and purposes, looked like we were already buying Deron Payne, jerseys. We
We
had,
were ready. Yeah.
I've already seen him photoshopped in the navy. Let's get him in the orange. What's he look like in that? Like, I mean, we had already kind of painted the rest of his, future Hall of Fame career, basically, on the Twitter. But it looks like the Commanders are going to want to bring him back under the tag. We've seen things like 99.99% chance that Payne's coming back. I'm a little surprised that they are going to continue to invest in that defensive line at that high
Yeah.
of a level, but they can afford it because they can shake loose of that Carson Wentz contract. Is that right? I have to check myself. Was that where he played last year? Jeez. So they can dump that Carson Wentz contract, and they can afford the 1 year cost on Deron Payne. But what do you think of that? Do you think that there's any chance that he shakes loose, or should Bears fans just move on to these other two very talented, but maybe not quite the perfect mix of youth and talent?
Yeah, I think it's best that as fans, the fan base, that ship has sailed. It could happen. I mean, they could change their mind. But we had Greg Gabriel on with us the last time we did a show here, and he talked about the same thing. He expect them to re-sign him. He mentioned the Wentz thing. Cut him, and if you lose that off the books, so you have money to play with, but you still got a lot of guys in the D line to pay. So who knows what shake out there. But yeah, I think Deron Payne is that ship has sailed. And it's sad because, like you said, man, we were all right there. We all assumed that's the guy. There's no way they can pay him. They're paying everyone else in that line. That line is stacked. That's like the Ryan Pace, put all the money in one spot and ignore everywhere else. That kind of what he did with the Bears. He put so much money on the defensive side, and it didn't work out. But with Washington, they're in a situation now. If they do get rid of the quarterback, which is going to happen, they have Howell there, I believe it is, and he's not the guy.
Not a Sam Howell
draft
fan?
a quarterback. They may draft a guy, so they're going to have young paycheck at the quarterback spot. So if that's the case, maybe they feel they can get by a couple years overpaying on the D line. And plus, that's Chico, man. He loves his defense. Kind of what they're going to build up for him. And I can't see it going anywhere unless the quarterback spot figured out, because that's seems like a pretty tough division. It was last year anyway. So it sucks, but it is what it is. Deron Payne probably staying in Washington with the franchise tag.
Well, let's talk about another NFC East defensive tackle, and that's Javon Hargrave. I think undoubtedly a more proven player, a better player in a
Yes.
lot of ways. Payne, you're kind of hoping that he can continue his rise, and he can continue to be a very good player and maybe take his game to the next level. And you're counting on that youth. Hargrave's a little older. He's 30. It's always weird to talk about these guys as being old when they're 30.
Old,
It's
yeah.
like, man, I would take that. But Javon Hargrave, very good football player, proven, probably the best potential free agent that's not a quarterback, right? Like Lamar Jackson, number one on everybody's sheets, as he should be. Hargrave's probably the best player that doesn't play quarterback that potentially could hit the market here. Very good football player. Now, what is his motivation? Where is he at in his career? What does he want out of his career at this point? I don't know, but you can bet that the Bears are going to be calling Javon Hargrave because he's the best player out there, and the Bears have the most money. So, what do you think about Hargrave, and what do you think about his fit with this Bears defensive line, and what do you think the Bears' chances are?
Yeah, that's a perfect fit again, but like you said, it comes down to, does he want to leave Philly, who just was the NFC champion? They have something good going over there. They have the quarterback in place. They got an outstanding, offensive line. Defensive line is stacked. They got a couple free agents. They got, I think, 3 other guys are free agents. I think Fletcher Cox also a free agent. Brandon Graham, the edge, he's also a free agent. So they can spend money there. But if there's a chance to pry him away, again, we talked about it, they're going to come over the top. Now, this is a guy that has their Pro Bowl potential. He could come in and play at a Pro Bowl level for the Bears, but you're going to pay a ton of money no matter how it shakes loose. You may have to take him one of the highest paid defensive tackles in the game today just to get him to come to Chicago.
I think I'm okay with that. I
Yeah.
think that I want that. Now, there are a couple other things that could happen, right? Okay, yeah, the Bears are able to trade down to 4, and they still take Jalen Carter, and so that kind of handles that spot, right? It's okay to have 2 guys like this, right?
Yeah.
Like, if there's nothing
Right.
wrong with that.
Yeah.
Let a defensive coordinator have 2 disruptors up front, and that would be just fine with me. Um, the the third name that we want to talk about here is Draymond Jones. Again, another guy I mentioned on Bill's show a couple weeks ago that I thought he's a name that interests me, and you sort of see him rising up a lot of these lists. He's a good football player. He's young, so you get that sort of like, are you betting on him kind of improving and getting that sweet spot in his career? Again, a guy that's going to be motivated, likely to. I don't know. I don't know these guys. I don't know their agents or anything like that. But as you kind of watch this contract game over the years, a lot of these guys are motivated by the dollars in their second
Yeah.
contract. He would be one of those guys. And so the Bears have the money. And so if they're not interested in Hargrave or they don't think they can pull him away, Ian Cunningham can't pull the magic or whatever. I think that Jones makes a lot of sense to go after. Now, we've heard a little bit that maybe he's more interested in sticking with a 3-4 instead of a 4-3.
Yeah.
So that might be the challenge with a guy like Draymond Jones.
That's my concern with him. Is his career been spent in a 30 front, more 5 tech. You're asking the guy, does he have the skill set to play the 3 tech? Yeah, he does. But he hasn't done it. So if you get a guy like him, there's more projection. With Highline, with Payne or Hargrave, they've done interior stuff. You know what you're going to get with those guys. So that's what you're paying for there. I think with Jones, again, you're overpaying because that's just the nature of the beast these time. So if you overpay for him and he comes in and he does not have the perfect fit as that 3 tech, now you're looking at Ryan Paul saying, what are you doing, man? This is a guy that wasn't a scheme fit. Your coaches and your scouts said, hey, he could probably do it. He didn't. But I think he'll be where he end up. He may not be quite as explosive if you're asking to play inside, just because, again, it's a projection.
Yeah. So for me, I think it's more Hargrave. The more I get into it, I really thought Payne was going to be the guy. But now I think you're hoping that Ian Cunningham connection brings you in Hargrave. You're going to pay top dollar plus.
Yeah.
That is what it is. But the Bears can afford that. And so that's where I'm at with the defensive tackle position. I do think that they're going to go hard after it. They know they have to rebuild those defensive the lines, both offense and defense, but they got to put some money into this. Unfortunately, the edge position is not nearly as deep as some of these other positions. Marcus Davenport, probably the best player on the market at edge. You probably remember him from the Saints. And then Arden Key is a guy that is starting to get a little bit of love in some of the lists and some of the projections to maybe go to the Bears. Arden Key is a nice player, and so I could definitely see that being a fit and being someone that the Bears go after. Davenport, a little more polarizing, right? Guys has a little bit more pedigree, but hasn't necessarily lived up to the pedigree. Has kind of an up and down career so far. So where are you at on the edge position, and who do you think the Bears might be interested in, or is this a kick it to the draft kind of situation?
You can't kick to the draft because who is on this for now you trust at edge?
None.
I like Dominic Robinson. I like him as a prospect, but he's a prospect. He was a wide receiver a couple years ago, so he's a guy. It's all projection with him. Does he have the tools? Yes. Does he have the length? Yes. Does he have the speed off the edge? Yes. Got to put it together. Travis Gibson, maybe he is who he is. He's a rotational defensive end at this point in his career, and that's just who he'll always be. So he's not your starter. They got rid of El Qadim Muhammad, who was pretty much non-existent a season ago. So the entire front four needs, so you can't wait till the draft. You got to go after a guy, and Davenport again. Man, you're going to overpay for him, and his production does not warrant being overpaid. But again, that's the nature of the beast. You're going to do that. I think Arden Key is a guy coming from Jacksonville. The Jags may not be able to pay him. You talked about earlier that they paid a ton of money last offseason. So this offseason may not be quite as spendy. So I think he's a guy I know coming out of college. EJ, I think, was pretty high on Key. Could like coming out of college. So, he may be the guy. He can come in. Again, he's not going to be a huge name where, he's going to come in and get double-digit sacks. But when you look at what's on the Bears roster now, he's a clear upgrade at defensive end, and that's what you need.
The other thing that I'll mention is that, like we talked about with Cody Whitehair earlier, there may be veterans that are currently on the roster that aren't free agents now that may be in a few weeks
Yeah.
because teams have decided they're going to shuffle it a certain way. So there may be guys that do shake loose. So you never know about that. And then we've talked a little bit about the trade. Again, it's not a draft show, but a little bit about the trades. Ryan Poles can be savvy, and when he moves around the board, he could try to pick up some veteran contracts. Again, there's teams that may want to shed some contracts. You could see him maybe try to do that as he's moving around the board. Giving up value somewhere and pulling more picks plus veteran players, there's nothing wrong with that approach either. So there are more ways to get at talent to put on this defensive line. Right now, though, the cupboard for edge isn't particularly fully stocked.
You talk about the trading around the board. It's possible. The Colts have a 3-tech that would look nice in Chicago, makes a ton of money. We'll see what happens. The Colts also have a free agent on the edge, Yannick. I'm gonna give you the last because I'm horrible with
Yannick
names.
Ngakoue.
I knew you'd have that name right there. He's a guy that would come in. He's a pass rush guy. I mean, he would, again, we're talking about upgrades. He's definitely one. And we actually had a chat here from the chat. I'm going to throw it up here because the Niners do have 2 defensive ends. Both guys are kind of rotational pieces there. The Bears obviously would bringing them in starters. Again, overpaying for these guys. So I think those are nice, like J2K says here, nice safety depth, Ebicom, and Jeff, I'm going to give you that name there.
I'm looking at the names, and I always thought it was Ekubom. So I've been flipping it. So he's got it spelled as Ebukam. So
Yeah.
the B and the K split. EJ can do these better than I can, but
He can.
Omanahu? I don't know. Well,
Both good pass
I'm sure I
rushers.
butchered it.
But both depth pieces for them. But again, coming to Chicago, they'd be starters. And that's what the Bears need. The Bears need someone to get after the quarterback because the roster is so bare. Justin Jones, the only guy coming back that probably deserves to be a clear cut, spot somewhere. The other guys are pretty much rotational spots, and you need bodies. You need bodies there, and you're going to throw a ton of money. And you did have a point earlier too, where you talk about if you draft a Jalen Carter after signing a Hargraves, that's fine. You need 2 obviously starters at DT, but you need 3 guys rotating. So you're going to have another body there anyway. So I think they're going to attack the trenches in free agency. But again, when the draft comes, you have to attack trenches in the draft. You want those young guys. You want those guys to come in, and you want to learn and grow in your scheme and bodies. You need bodies at this point.
Absolutely. So that's how we see the top of the free agent board. We will certainly, once the free agency does start up, and we'll get more about the tags and all that kind of stuff. But once free agency starts up, we will then be able to reset and reshuffle the boards, right? So we're talking
Yeah.
about the top names right now at all these positions because that's how it works. You generally don't sign the 84th prospect before the 15th best prospect, right? I mean that's the idea. So these dominoes fall, and then you reshuffle the board and readjust where your thinking's at. So we'll be able to talk about the first wave of free agency, who the Bears are able to come in, bring in, and then reset and reshuffle. Okay, now we think they should go after these guys. So that's kind of our preview for how we think they'll attack the trenches, offensive, defensive line, in the first wave of free agency. These names that you're going to hear. Again, they're not going to get all of these guys, but they're going to get more than some people think. Like
Yeah.
they have the
They
money.
have
They're
to.
going to be
Yeah.
major players. Remember Jacksonville signing all those guys last year. It's going to be like that. So I mean, I suppose they could come out of it and not, and we could look silly, but I would expect them
No.
to spend big. And I think you should too. So we're going to cut the show here, short and sweet tonight. In terms of that, we're going to stick around for a little bit for some Q&A, and I just texted Robert Schmitz because I'm going to bring him on for the Q&A as he tees up his show. So make sure that you're also listening to Robert's show. And we had a bunch of stuff drop today. We got a bunch of
Yeah.
stuff dropping in the next 2 days. Off season can be kind of weird. You're trying to just work through your material, and sometimes it all converges at once. So
Yeah.
appreciate everybody joining us and working through the material as well. But we are we're starting to get back into that the groove. The little off season starting to kick up a little bit. I'm coming out of my slumber. I definitely hibernated through through the playoffs. I just couldn't get myself to do much, but I'm starting to feel that itch. I wrote a ridiculous article, and thank you for letting me post it.
That was fun.
Fan whininess, and came up with a whole equation and a graph, so it made it official. That's fun. That's posted on the website, Windy City Gridiron. You should go check that out. What else is going on?
Yeah, I mean, you talk about the board. Speaking of which, the board you guys are doing now is rolling now. The talking about the video channel, we had Tight End Building the Board episode go up today. Dr. Mason West's Bare Bones. He had Dr. Fisher on earlier, who does a lot of the training for the Bear training fields. Arnell Mooney, so he's involved in Mooney's rehab. He talked about that today on the channel earlier today. That's on the channel now. It'll also be a podcast in a couple days here once we get it chopped up and put up there. But yeah, it was a busy day. Then of course you mentioned Robert. He's going to do a big free agency X's and O's live stream. And if any of you guys know his live stream, we're talking, it's going on 9 o'clock here Central Time. He'll be doing this till 1 a.m. because he does, minimum 4-hour live stream, Q&A, interactive. So that's definitely going to be fun to stick around for that.
Yeah, it's all worth it. And if you have a question, put it in the chat. He'll answer it. Right. That's why it takes 5 hours. But really appreciate everybody joining us on the podcast, and we will stick around here for a little bit on the YouTube, and we will see you next time. Till then, bear down.
There's Robert.
Look at Lester looking good.
Doesn't he look good? He's got the little polo on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Looking official.
We just got done plugging your live stream coming up. So that's going to be
the one right after this. We're going to talk about a bunch of free agency.
Yeah, exactly. Nice.
Oh, yeah. We did it through the we literally did it all through the season, and we will do it again because why wouldn't we? And so we'll talk a little bit more. J2K, how you doing? I hope everybody's doing all right. We'll ideally, as we get into off-season streaming, I just want to say we're probably not going to go until 2 a.m. I don't know if I can handle that anymore.
You just promised one. Lester just promised one.
I did.
You promised 1 in the morning? Are you crazy?
Floated probably 1 because, you're starting at 9, 10, 12, 1. Not only 4 hours for you. When was the last time you did less than 4 hour stream?
Well, that's why I was originally going to go at 8, and then you guys delayed for an hour.
Yeah,
who did this to me?
Well, it's more that I have to pack because I'm coming to your neck of the woods.
You are.
This is the first time. Well, I guess we saw each other last year, so this will be the 3rd time that we've seen each other, right?
Jeff, this is when game day says we are coming to your city, right?
True.
Jeff, you are coming to my city.
If anybody's in the Dallas involved here coming up, a race. Oh,
anybody's in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and around on Sunday and want to come to the Cowtown Half Marathon, you will see 2 Windy City Gridiron podcasters running this race.
You sure will.
I expect video. I expect a post-match Bears breakdown. Because you're going to have all that time to kind of circulate with your mind and nothing to talk about. So you get to the end, I would expect something.
Rob, where are you at in this? Like, what are your expectations for this half marathon? And what do you, I mean, to give people a background, Rob, you ran in high school.
Yes.
I played offensive line.
Yes.
What are the expectations about you versus me in this race?
Oh, you're going to cook me. Like, I mean, this comes down to basic biology. I am 5'5" with a short torso, or with a long torso and short legs. And Jeff, you are not. Roughly how tall would you say you are?
I'm 6 foot, 6'1". The ideal runner height though is somewhere in between.
I believe you're probably right, but I can tell you when you're not in amazing shape that when I go with a half stride chug, my half stride chug is probably 2/3 conservatively the length of yours. And so it adds about a minute per mile, as I've found, just polling around and researching because I thought I was crazy. I was like, what is wrong with me? But also my neighborhood course is really hilly. I mean, Lester, I found time in the midst of being a dad to run, about 5 miles on average, like 5 mile runs, which I feel like is not that bad. But then I talked to Jeff and he's like, only 5 miles.
So
and I'm like,
this is what I worry about. Now let's have this conversation here on the record. We're different athletes.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm willing to be wrong. Okay. But the fact that you've only had a 5 miler
I've had a 6 miler.
or a 6 mile. It doesn't matter. The fact that you've only had 6 miles as your long run would terrify me going into a half marathon.
Oh, I mean, they gave me 4 hours, Jeff.
Well,
Like-
okay, yes, okay. So you're willing to walk if you run into struggle.
Yes.
Okay.
I
And
mean,
you're willing to say like, okay, this is enough. Because
my
at
wife gave
first-
me one rule. She said, "Do not get hurt." And I
Okay.
said, "You got it, honey."
So at first there was you basically said like you were going to run with me. You like there was a like expectation that like you were going to keep up with me. And now
thought
you
I
feel
was.
like that's not going to happen.
Well, when I was 18, I mean, I'd been running for 2 years. Like I was super unconfident, Jeff. Like every time we went into, at the time it was just like 5Ks, but our coach was psycho. I had us running like 7, 8, 9 miles at different times. So the point was that by the end of, I guess, my training, he would occasionally, as a joke, because I was the captain, but I was the captain by general consensus, not because of skill. And so occasionally he would throw me up with the varsity and be like, "You're the captain. You have to do this." And so I would have to run hard to keep up with the guys. But then I'd check my watch and we were splitting 5:30 miles. And I was like, how on earth am I keeping up at all? And so I thought to myself, okay, at one point in my life, I was really cooking with grease. Like, how slow could I be now? Like 10-minute miles. Jeff's telling me 10-minute miles are the goals. Comes to find out, 10-minute miles are hard to keep up with. Either that or my Fitbit hates me, because when I was watching my times on like the Apple Health app, it would be like, "You're killing it, bud." Like when I would originally send you times, that was what I was going off of what would Apple Health tell me. And then I put Fitbit on it. It's like, "You're on 12-minute miles, bud." And I was like, which is it? So there's
Go
part
with
of me,
the
Jeff, where-
go with the Apple.
Somewhere
If
in
Apple's
between.
telling you about time, go with the time. That's the way to do it here.
So I don't know, Jeff. I mean, like, I imagine we're gonna run. I imagine I'm gonna get a great workout, that you're gonna get another half
Wow.
marathon under your belt, and then we're gonna each crush like 4 beers afterwards because
Well,
they're free.
maybe one.
Like,
But
by one you mean 1 6-pack, which I understand.
now, again, we will see how you feel at the end of 13 miles. Now, again, we're different athletes. You may feel like, I feel great. I want to drink 4 beers. My first half marathon, I said, I would like to lay down on a couch and not move for the next week. So,
We got to remember, the trip I'm taking, right?
yes.
You
I
recognize
do.
what you're christening?
Well,
You are sending me off to Indianapolis. I might as well be running to Indianapolis, like with this half marathon. Not
What-
really. You can't even get out of the city of Dallas in
When do you leave?
13 miles.
when do you leave, though?
Monday morning.
Yeah, that's going to be rough.
It's gonna be a
Monday
lockup.
morning for the combine after your half marathon. You're going
Yes.
to be so sore.
I'm gonna be locked up. But you know what? Grit, determination.
Grit and determination.
I love what
Okay,
Eric
well-
just said. I've always considered myself the Michael Jordan of sitting.
That's a nice comment. I'm putting it on
I,
the screen because that's where I'm at.
I'm gonna throw. We'll have to throw up a poll, and we'll have to let people pick who they think will win between the two of us.
Oh,
You will, but
Well,
I'll
I
drink more beers.
understand. I feel pretty confident in myself. I'm a little worried, and I'm a little worried that your wife is going to kill me
Why?
because I convinced you to do this, and you're going to be miserable.
Are you kidding?
Just don't
I'm
die.
rarely miserable, except for when I am. But more importantly, this is helping me get in shape. Truly, this has been about as motivating to do anything physical as I've had in a while, because it was more like it was like, okay, Robert, you have the choice to make this either a run or a death march. And so I picked the run and trained a little bit. Because Jeff, it's so funny. You're like, I'm a little concerned you've only run 6. And Lester's over there like, you're running 6? And I'm siding
Yeah.
with Lester in this, where it's like,
That's
how
great.
I
6
feel.
miles is
I'm like, I'm doing.
I walked
Off
6
the
blocks and
keister.
I'm like, yes, I went 6 blocks today.
If I was training you, I would make you run a 10. I would make you get up to a 10.
I sure was going to. And then Texas picked that day to make the afternoon. So, Jeff, it's been, it's worth remembering that like I've been training through the cold, not
Oh
cold,
my
cold.
God.
Calm down.
The Texas
It
cold.
actually, you know
What
what?
are we
It actually
talking
got
about?
down. It got
Well,
down to 25 degrees and
That-
even 18
I would
degrees
run
at one
in
point.
shorts if it was 25.
You're crazy.
When-
Anyways, so normally that's meant that I could run in the afternoon because that was actually when it was warmest. And so I was attempting to find when it was like 50 because I thought that was perfect. Well, my latest run, it decided to be 90. And I was like, I just ran out of water. Straight up.
Oh no, that's
Also,
that's-
have you run marathons similar to Cowtown before?
what do you mean by that?
Apparently, this half is wild. Like people just offer you shots as you're running.
Yeah. I mean, I ran the Mardi Gras half. I mean, it's not going to be crazier than that. You don't have to take the shots.
What?
Do you though?
Yeah.
Free
I mean,
shots. Come on. I feel that's part of the thing.
I
All
feel
right,
like
I
that's
was-
part of the thing.
I was offered andouille, like sausage, right?
the
Like
sausage
chicken sausage, like,
mid-run?
off the grill as I'm running this Mardi Gras half. I mean, like,
You ate it, right?
no, I'm running.
Wait a minute. So you're telling me on these half marathons you get free shots and you get free andouille sausage?
And free
Well, I mean,
beer
in
afterwards.
Mardi Gras one.
I
yeah.
think I should be running this Mardi Gras marathon. That's my
You like
kind
you
of
gotta
run.
run it,
Yeah.
Lester.
I would die. So yeah, I would not.
Lester, they give you 4 hours.
Yeah.
And then they come by with a gator and they pick you up.
Oh, I could do that. Yeah.
Man,
nah,
you really
I
read
wouldn't
on
do
what happens if you're at the caboose, right?
Be prepared.
There are some races that they give a medal to the last place finisher, and they
Do
call it
they?
the Caboose Award.
Wait, in what race?
Some races, like it happens, it exists. They
That
give
sounds
it
like something you could
Caboose.
compete for, though.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't
Do
know.
you really want to win? I won the worst. I mean, that's
You get everybody else doesn't go home with a trophy.
yeah.
I actually finished last place in a 10-mile race. I entered a race when I was first running. It was before my first half, and I was not a good runner at all. I'm not a good runner now, but like I definitely wasn't then. And it was like for good runners. Like it was for like like people that really took it seriously. And it was my longest run at the time, and the police officer was like trailing the last runner, right, like closing down the course, and then he took it into his own hands to just like say, okay, move to the side, I'm going to move up ahead, you're falling behind everybody. And like there was multiple people that were behind me at that time, and that he did that to. And then like I tried to keep up, so I like sprinted to like the next person because I didn't know what happened. I thought like, oh, I like am disqualified. Again, I didn't know anything about running. And this guy, he was wrong. That person shouldn't have done that. But so I sprinted to like keep up with the next person. Oh, I just ran through like all of my fuel, right? Like I just like, and so about a mile later, I was just hitting a wall and I was just crashing, and then I fell behind. That was the worst experience. I'm surprised I still run because I felt terrible about myself. But I ended up finishing, and I believe that I was the last finisher in the race. Like they were taking down water stations and stuff, right? Like it was pretty rough on my fragile male ego, but good character build.
Well,
I
you
know
what
this
they
is
say.
pretty-
If at first fast, so don't worry about it too much.
I know this is pretty corny, but really at the end of the day, I felt like exactly like you're saying, Jeff, there are a million ways that people could turn me running a half marathon into trying to make me feel bad about myself. And I pretty much just refused to let anybody do that, where I was like, I'm going to move 13 miles. And there are city blocks of the city of Dallas that if you aggregated everybody's movement on that same Sunday, they will not move 13 miles put together. So at whatever time I do it at, I'm fine. And I'm going to go out there. I'm going to have a great time. We're going to run Cowtown. Fort Worth is beautiful. Like it's going to be fun. And if it's not going to be fun, what was the point? Partially to sort of tell yourself that you did something, but getting hurt, not an option, not allowed. Outside of that, it's gonna be great. Are we gonna record something afterwards? Do we do that?
We should at least do something on the Twitter and maybe have our better halves do something and
What we could do is Lester could give us a surprise topic. And it's required that we have to have just run 13 miles, and also we need to be 3 beers deep each.
You keep thinking of it to drink. You don't want to drink when you're done with these. I gotta tell you.
So
I've never
we
felt
will.
like I wanted
To be
that.
clear, so we will feel really bad and also woozy and probably nauseous talking about the Bears podcast.
That's how.
I think we'll do
That's like
something.
the
We'll do some sort of
last. That's the end of the Matt Nagy era where we all felt nauseous.
Oh my gosh!
If you guys watching want us
The
to do
trust era,
something,
yeah.
let us know. We'll try to work it in and figure it out.
Lester, the vibe. I don't know. I still don't know how the timeout penalty thing was so common. I mean, truly, like, did they invent new plays and just be like, okay, we had an idea. We've been thinking about this one for a quarter and a half. So you're gonna go out here and that one that we practiced, throw it away. We're not running that. We're running this one. I know you've never done it, but it should be easy. Just go out there, do it on
Delay
2.
of game. Yeah.
Illegal shift. I mean, like all kinds of just bizarre penalties that you were like,
It's okay.
who?
All right.
So who was in the Trench Tribute tonight?
Well, we didn't do categories. We just talked about how we were gonna build the lines through free agency.
All right. So it's a good lead into your show because you're going to break down some film now.
Well, yeah.
Maybe.
I mean,
Unless you
no,
get
there's a bunch of these guys that like I literally haven't watched. I mean, I pulled the tape of a bunch of the guys that we haven't talked about on the channel. Deron Payne's on the thumbnail because I was like, who else? But like we're gonna be talking through Zach Allen, Caleb McGarry, Juwan Taylor. I could pull McGlinchey's film if people are really interested. I know a lot of people have mentioned Jacoby Myers. I haven't done like a deep study on Jacoby Myers because I refuse to admit that the Bears won't draft Jackson Smith-Jigba. And by signing Jacoby Myers, they would be openly saying they wouldn't do that. And that's just not in my religious beliefs at this point. So I can't acknowledge that.
No Alan Lazard tape. Keep that guy. That's not happening.
Well, the question, it's always a question of market, isn't it, Lester?
Yeah,
where it's like, if Alan Lazard, who out there is going to go on and say, oh, I'm feeling pretty bougie. Like, I can't wait to see what free agency has for me.
Yeah.
Like, to me, Lazard and Chicago make a lot of sense, but that's more of like Madden sense. Like if Lazard decides that he wants to be, I don't know, Jeff, in warm weather, like you're not finding that in Chicago, and he would be well within his rights to do so. I mean, February free agency fits, and pretty much always leave out whatever the free agent wants. To use a silly example, like Draymond Jones, the Denver 3-tech, right? He's a 3-tech. He's also best described as a 3-4 defensive end. But could he play 4-3 defensive end? Kick inside for 3-tech, play some 5-tech while he's at it? Of course he could. And I love him. Like when you watch the guy's tape, he's an animal as an inside pass rusher. He's good enough in one gap run defense. So would he make sense in Chicago? He might. Depends on if he wants to play in a 4-3. Like truly and very literally. In the draft, it doesn't really matter. You can draft somebody out of position and be like, this is your career now. Sucks. And I mean, really, like you get with it or you hit the road. And I think Tevin Jenkins literally had those conversations with himself of, do I want to be a guard for the rest of my life? Or do I want to have to play redemption football, which is way worse? You know what I mean? Like, Jeff, because we've seen it before. Like, if somebody gets cut for literally any reason before they finish their rookie contract, they're going to get signed for a minimum deal. They absolutely have to play well, non-negotiable. And then they still get signed for cheap. They never get back to the value that they had when they were a second-round pick, because then they become the second-round bust because they didn't finish the contract. It's a brutal game, but you can do that when
Alex
you're drafted.
Leatherwood, right?
Yeah. I mean, seriously. And so with some of these free agents, like Lester, there's a real question. Jeff, there's a real question on, do these guys want to play the role that maybe I in the film room can envision for them? They get an opinion. because as long as there's two bidders, they get to choose. And it goes back to the question of like, I don't know. We'll never know if the Bears offered Juju Smith-Schuster or Marquez Valdez-Scantling any money. We know that they went to play with the Chiefs and then they won a Super Bowl. Seems like they made a pretty decent decision, but we just have no idea. The deals that I almost wish there was an NFL like way to send out a list of these teams offered this player this much money, like after it's all said and done, the
You
we
want
tried list.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. That'd be great. I'd love to
It'd
know.
be kind of funny, wouldn't it? Like,
Yeah.
like this is the offer that this person turned down list or something like that. And maybe you find some interesting ones on there, Jeff, where like Juju Smith-Schuster turns down more money to play, or that would have had him in, I don't know.
Generally,
not
what you hear
Pittsburgh.
from an agent.
What?
Right? This guy turned down more money to play here because that's how much he wants to play here, and they don't tell you how much more money, right? Could be $100,000 more, whatever.
Be a
but
$500K roster bonus,
right? Yeah, there's a lot of that sort of thing. That 100,000 is a lot of money to you and me, but it's not necessarily to a big NFL contract. We talked about that motivations, right? Like a lot of times, guys coming off their rookie contract, they may be most motivated by the dollars. And then after they kind of have been paid, they're motivated by going to a winner, right? And right now the Bears are not a winner. We hope they will be.
What?
But they have the money. They have all the money. And so if you want the gold, you come to Chicago right now. So a lot of these guys that are in that hitting their second contract age, this is really an attractive spot for them because this is where you'll get the money.
Yep. And I mean, let's be real, right? I think there are a lot of fans out there that are going to say, and Charles, I'll get to what you're talking about in a moment, because I do think that's an important thing we need to talk about. But anyways, Jeff, there are a lot of fans that'll look and they'll say, well, I mean, also it's an ascending team. Like, this is a real shot at a Super Bowl. You get to play with Justin Fields, and we'll name a bunch of stuff that's like, we hope. And any smart player would look and be like, there have been a lot of players that have signed with a lot of rebuilding teams, and not all of them get out of rebuilding. Like, it is not unthinkable, Jeff, to your point, that it's not Chicago where you're going to get any free agents at a discount. You're going to have to pay a premium to get them to come play for you because you're the money destination. You're not the fame and fortune destination.
You're
really.
paying sticker. Like that's the point. Poles is paying sticker, and he might have to pay a little extra.
Yeah,
to
he's coming over
to make
the
sure he gets it. That
thankfully
is what it is.
The Bears have a warehouse line of credit, and nobody else does. Like, I mean, even the sticker can't account for the amount of just inflation the Bears cap has on it right now in terms of just raw dollars. Like, it's a bizarre situation because really, like, did you guys realize, because I didn't, that like the Bears have that, we all know, like $150 some odd million that they like mandated have to spend in year one. And the next team down in terms of effective cap space is at like $45 million. Might even be like Jacksonville at like, maybe it's 65. I am going off the top of my head, so I'm not certain.
The floor is ridiculous. They're going to have to dump a ton of cash. So
1 to 2 is such a drop off. It is insane. Like, the difference between 1 and 2 is probably the difference between 2 and like 20. Just taking a guess. And so, like you're talking about, Jeff, you got to pay sticker. So does Jacksonville. Like, Jacksonville's not getting anybody on a bargain. Literally anybody other than a dynasty team has to pay sticker price for a lot of these free agents. It's not an uncommon thing. It's not unique to Chicago. It's just that the Bears have so much money. I mean, truly, Jeff, I think that the one thing that a lot of Bears fans aren't prepared for is how many brand name free agents they will sign. I don't even know which ones.
You should watch this show called Baron Ballast.
I should.
He was prepping, getting all
the
film ready for his film work. Speaking of which, we should get out of here so you can jump on your stream.
One more thing,
people
Jeff,
looking for you.
Because Charles, to your point, you mentioned Chicago deserves better than good enough. We're looking for special. I've heard this a lot, and I do think it's worth mentioning. We are talking about NFL free agency. We look for special in the draft. That's where you find special. In free agency, we are looking for good. We're looking for better than what the Bears have. and we're looking for a good that will stick, because it's hard enough, honestly, to find free agents that are any good. I mean, it's way more common to find free agents that are Le'Veon Bell, or free agents that are, I mean, Jeff, I'm sure you can help me with a bazillion of these, like Olivier Vernon. I'm trying to think of who were all those guys that the Buccaneers signed in a couple years ago. It was like somewhere between 2015 and 2018. You know what I'm talking about? Like, it was the Buccaneers that went on a spending spree. Then it was the Patriots a couple of years ago that went on a crazy spending spree, and they've cut like half the guys that they signed. I mean, it's not abnormal for us to go on a spending spree, and we're gonna like hate a good third of these guys just by default. I don't know what will happen. Something will, right? But spending that money judiciously is very difficult. And I think the best way we spend it is by spending it on players that are better, players that fit the scheme, players that raise your floor. And while it's boring, and I agree with you, because you talk about special, Saquon Barkley is a great example. Saquon Barkley definitely was special. Will Saquon Barkley remain special? I don't know. 26 is a lot in running back years. 26 is a lot in running backs that have been injured multiple times, years, including a major knee injury, years. And it becomes just a more nuanced conversation than pay for the guy who was an all-star in 2020, because I feel like this is exactly the kind of year, Jeff, we've seen teams do it every single season, don't we? Where they assemble the 20 or the whatever the year is, in this case it's 2023, the year -4 all-star team. They go get AJ Green, and they get Keenan Allen, and they get Saquon Barkley, and they get Jason Pierre-Paul. I mean, the Bears are smoking, right? And it's like, it's not quite how it works. I mean, more boring names like Zach Allen and Jawan Taylor, and I mean, even as much as, again, it would crush my JSN heart, Jacoby Myers, like these guys that don't have a crazy amount of pedigree. You probably don't know their name yet, because they're relatively young. Like, they're going to make a bigger impact for the Bears in 2024, in 2025 than Saquon Barkley is. And that's not to say I'm actually anti-running back. I just did a podcast with Danny Meehan that will drop sometime probably next week by the time I have it edited, on running backs. And there are some sweet running backs in this class. Like, if you told me that I had a choice between signing Saquon Barkley or trading down a bunch and drafting a running back with a second-round pick, which is like a nerd sin, I would probably lean latter, Jeff, because at least you're getting young talent in there. It's just tough. Less.
All right. You're welcome, everyone. Robert is officially wound up and ready to go. He's
You're
going
right.
He's lathered up. He's
He's
ready.
lathered up. That's a great
Boo.
phrase. So he's ready to go. You guys enjoy the live stream. Switch over. It's on the same channel, but it'll be a different stream. So Robert will hit that up in a couple minutes for Lester and I. Appreciate it. And yeah, have a good one, guys.
Talk to you guys soon.